we're working with the Easton Public School District. There's 9,000 kids in the Easton Public Schools. And so this is going to be something that the kids in school watch during their, as part of their curriculum. And we're trying to get the school district to get kids to write the kinds of pieces that you wrote about their experience with the pandemic this year. So hopefully a whole bunch more kids will write poems and stories and graphic novels and stuff like that. So your work is going to inspire other people to look inside themselves and figure out how they feel and whether stories come out and stuff like that. So that's really exciting. I was so excited when I saw this piece. I thought this would be so inspiring. So thank you so much, all of you, for the work that you did and also for participating in this, because I think this is going to encourage other kids to.
Valentina, I'm 11 years old, live in San Francisco, and wrote the story. I forgot what story I wrote. There's 2 books.
The future?
Oh, yeah, the future.
All right. Inara.
My name is Ainara, and I'm 8 years old.
Where do you live?
I live in Oakland, and I wrote the story Why I Stopped Being Bored.
Gio, why don't you go next?
My name is Gia. I am 10 years old. I live in San Francisco, but I live in Groveland right now. And I wrote the story Magic is Everywhere. I'm in 4th grade.
Neela.
My name is Neela. I'm 13. I live in San Francisco, and I wrote the story That Bus Ride.
Great. Olive? Olive, you want to go?
My name is Olive. I'm 15 years old. My name is Olive. I'm 15 years old. I'm a sophomore at Central Catholic High School in Portland, Oregon, and I wrote the piece Generation.
Mazzy.
I'm Mazzy. I am 11 years old. I wrote Imagine, and I'm in San Francisco.
And Summer.
My name is Summer. I'm 9 years old. I'm in 4th grade, and I wrote the story The Beginning.
Great. Welcome, everybody. So we have about twice as many authors as are on the call. So there are there are a total of, I think, 16 authors, and most of the illustrations that are in the book are done by the authors themselves. I did a couple that were separate from the actual stories, and there's one that a friend of Gia's did for her story. And I'm Debbie, and I live in Oakland, California, and I worked with Valentina to edit the book.
Well, maybe I could start. First of all, I'm Andy, and I'm in Easton, Pennsylvania, and I represent the Easton Book Festival. And so we're so excited that you all decided to come to the Easton Book Festival. Thank you so much for sharing your stories and for sharing your stories about how you came to write these things. So Debbie and I talked a little bit about what kinds of questions we might be interested in asking you. But I wanted to ask Debbie a question first, which is, how did you end up working on this project?
So, I was hanging out with Valentina, which is one of the really positive things that happened to me with COVID-19, because we got to spend more time together. And we were hanging out, and she showed me a story that she wrote. Did you write it for school?
Yeah.
Yeah, she wrote a story for school about COVID-19, and it was actually do you call it a fantasy or sci-fi?
Yeah, it was
a sci-fi story. And we were going on a bike ride, and I said, maybe we should make a book about kids and youth's pandemic shelter-in-place experiences. And she got super excited. And so that made me super excited. And so that's how we did it. Anything else you want to add?
That's pretty much it.
That's what started it. And we had no idea what we were getting ourselves into.
Was it a lot of work?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, Debbie, what I'm thinking is that maybe you could ask some questions and of everybody, and we could just sort of, and then maybe would some of the kids read what they wrote? And
Yeah, we
that'd be
do
great.
have some who want to read. Should we ask some, let's ask some questions first, and then we can do some readings. Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah,
Okay,
or we could mix it up. Whatever you think, whatever it feels like.
okay. So I'm curious about, for who, anybody who wants to answer, about what gave you your idea for the piece that you wrote. Like, what gave you the idea? Does anybody have a thought? Summer. Yeah, you can just raise your hand. You don't need to click like the raise hand feature. So we'll get Summer and then Olive, and then if anybody else wants to answer.
So basically, for my story, I kind of based it off of what was actually what was actually happening with kids. Because at the beginning, a lot of people couldn't see their friends and they couldn't really go anywhere. And it was just very crazy and nobody knew what was happening. So that's kind of what I based my story off of, like just not understanding what's happening in the world right now.
Awesome, Summer, thanks. Olive, what were you gonna say?
So for my piece, I would say I had by like initial inspiration, had a lot of contributing factors. I feel like so far during the pandemic, we have all lost and missed out on a lot of things, but more importantly, as a society, we've had like a wake-up call or call to action on the like social injustices and environmental crises that are currently like plaguing society, which is long overdue, but also monumental to like all of our lives right now. We are at a point, especially our generation, where there is no time left but now, and so we have to fight now if we want a future. I think it is also, we also like understand that it is important that we all come together, put aside our differences, and fight for what matters most. Another thing that I thought about, it was kind of always at the back of my mind while I was writing my piece, was that phrase like, our children are our future, which I think is extremely ignorant and kind of the mentality that has kind of plagued our history, and we have to go now because before there's no time left. So that was kind of what I put into my piece.
That's great, thank you. Can you tell me more about why you feel that phrase is ignorant?
I think it is in the sense of if you only leave it to the next person and don't start fighting now. And so it's important that we start now and that everyone realizes now and doesn't leave it.
Thanks. Who else wants to talk about what gave you inspiration? Gia.
My inspiration was I'm Irish, I love magic, and I have a great imagination.
Wonderful, thank you. Anybody else want to talk about the inspiration for your story or poem? Okay, cool. So I'm wondering, what do you want other kids or adults to know about your experience with COVID-19 and shelter in place? So this can have to do with what you wrote, or it can be something else that's come to you, because a bunch of time has passed since then. So is there anything anybody would like other kids or grown-ups to know? Valentina.
I think that even though it's been hard for everybody, still think of the good things that are happening right now.
That's great. Can you all hear, Andy, can you hear well enough? Yeah?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
We'll go Mazzy, because she hasn't spoken yet, and then Summer, okay?
I think when I was writing the story, I was writing it from a point of view, because it was still like, when I was asked to write the story, it was a lot more of like towards the beginning, or and I was just like there's a lot of sadness and confusion, and now we're 6-7 months into it, and I've kind of learned a lot more that there are bigger problems in the world, and that it's not necessarily like it's not the end of the world.
Thank you. Summer.
I want people to know, like, sort of like Valentina, that there are still good things, but also that even though it's stressful, you can kind of like find your own path through it.
Thank you. You guys are so awesome. Anybody else want to answer that one? I have some other questions. No, you're good? Okay. So I would like to know if you want to keep writing and drawing, for some of you who made illustrations, as you get older, and if you do, what kinds of things do you want to write or make art about? Summer.
So I've always wanted to continue drawing and writing for the rest of my life. I really want to be an art teacher when I'm an adult. But with my writing and like illustrations, I want to inspire people to be stronger. And sorry, there's a motorcycle going by. But I want to inspire people to be stronger and know that they can do it.
Thanks. Anybody else think you want to keep writing? Mazzy.
Yeah, I write all the time. I spend all my days just like writing and reading. I think I definitely want to continue with it throughout my whole life.
Is there anything in particular you think, like a certain genre or a certain topic you want to write about?
Yeah, I like historical fiction and fantasy.
Cool. And you play music, right? Are you still playing music?
Yep. Yeah,
Yeah.
I like writing songs and poems and all that too.
Awesome. Gia.
I do want to keep writing, and it is really fun to do.
It's really fun. Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. I would like to ask Valentina what it was like being co-editor of the book.
It was really fun. I enjoyed it a lot, but there was a lot of stumps when we're in the process. Yeah.
Like what?
Like seeing which website to use to make the book, and yeah.
Well, what was the best part of being a co-editor?
Everything.
Like what?
Reading all the stories.
And what was the biggest challenge?
Choosing which which story goes where.
So yeah, we went through all the stories and we were deciding what order to put them in. We had to decide things like what fonts to use and what else did we have to do? We had a lot of choices, like the layout, whether
Editing.
to put, yeah, editing. Yeah. Is there anything that you learned?
That it's not easy to write a book. It takes a long time. I thought it was gonna go so fast.
Yeah.
But it took a long time.
And can you tell us something about the title?
Well, today Berlin, she wrote a story called Pure Content, and we thought there was a line that said hopes high, and we thought we didn't want it to be sad, and yeah. So, yeah.
Cool. Andy, do you have other questions in your mind? Can't hear you. I think you're muted.
I loved hearing about everyone wanting to write some more. I think that I have written all throughout my life also, and I think that when you write, it's like you find out what you really think. And I guess my question is, were you surprised by what you wrote? Did your own writing surprise you? Did what you wanted to write surprise you? Anybody? Yeah, Valentina?
Yeah, it surprised me a lot. Kind of came out really dark what I wrote, so yeah.
Anybody else? Were you surprised by what you wrote? Mazzy?
Yeah, I think then I was like, no, actually, I'm surprised. Or like, then I was like, oh my gosh, this is so good. And I look back at it now and I've grown as a writer. I've actually written like a novel, like a 90-page novel. And I look at that and I'm like, oh, I feel like I could have edited that and I could have made this a lot more happier. And it was so surprised then when I wrote it, but now it's just kind of like, oh.
This has been a really productive summer for you. So you wrote that, when did you write it?
I started it like the first week of quarantine and I finished it like a month or two ago.
I see. And tell me about the novel.
It's a fantasy. It's kind of complicated, but yeah.
Yeah, sometimes you can go back and keep working on something that you wrote a long time ago. I have now written a couple of books, and each of my books contains things that I wrote like 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Like I go back and even things that I wrote a long time ago, and I can use them again. So you don't have to despair that you have published this now, but you can still go back and reuse it. That's so cool. Wow. So which of you wrote a poem? I noticed there were some poems and some stories, and there was a graphic novel. Who were the poets here? Olive, can you tell me whether do you write poetry usually, or do you write fiction as well, or?
Well, I haven't written a ton, but this year my English teacher really encouraged me to start writing poetry because I wrote a piece for her class and she was like, oh, you have to do this. And what I really enjoy about writing with poetry is you can write it in a way that it can be interpreted differently by people's experiences, and they can everyone's going to take something different away, which I think is really unique to this form of writing, which I really enjoy, and it's kind of become like my favorite way to write it. So yeah, I hope that answered.
Gia, did you want to say something about the other question I asked about whether you were surprised by what you wrote? I think I saw your hand go up then. Was I wrong about that? Oh, okay, sorry. I thought I saw your hand go up. Yeah, I love that about poetry also, Olive, that different people read it and they see different things. Is that something did anybody have that experience that with the pieces that you wrote, that different people have come and said to you, oh, I thought this about it, and then somebody else said, oh, I thought that about it, or like somebody says to you, oh, this is what I thought about what you wrote, and you thought to yourself, oh, I meant something completely different, like the different ways that people read it? Did anybody have that experience yet? Like people got confused by what you wrote, or they said something different? Okay, my questions aren't as good as Debbie's. Debbie, do you think that we could maybe have somebody read their work?
Yes, we have a few readings that are waiting to happen. So I would like to start, if it's okay, except she just vanished, with Mazzy. Are you here, Mazzy?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so when we got all the stories, like Valentina said, it was a process to the stories and poems and comics to look through them and think about. We really thought about what order to put them in. And it's interesting because Mazzy's the first one to send her story, but it also was a really good opener for the book, because to me, her story really portrays how I think a lot of kids felt when first hearing about the pandemic and shelter in place. So I thought maybe Mazzy, I'm gonna take a look. that you could start with the beginning and read up to survive the place I told you partway through. You know, I don't want to give it away. Okay, you know where I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Okay.
So
All right. So everybody just relax and listen in.
I don't have it printed because our printer broke. I will be reading it off the computer if that's
Oh,
okay.
that's okay. That's fine.
Okay. Once upon a time, there was a girl who loved school and music more than anything. Her name was Mazzy. She loved the way music made her feel and learning with all her friends at school. Every day, she would wake up singing while getting ready for school. She would imagine herself walking.
Don't go so fast, Mazzy. Slow down a little.
Okay. Turning in her homework to her teacher, getting her morning work packet out, and sitting with her friends, giggling while working. But there was one problem with the life that she led. She took school for granted. Never thought her time there would end, never thought that anything would be different. She never imagined being trapped at home for months and months, and the only way to communicate with her friends through email and phone calls. Bye, guys, Massey waved to her friends. They smiled and waved back. See you tomorrow, she called. She looked at the four of them as they said, see you tomorrow, too, in return to her. She walked out of the school building and looked around her. Every afternoon, she would say, see you tomorrow, to the school building, the teachers, the students, the parents. After all, it was how she was, happy, secure. She walked out to the street and saw her mom and two sisters. She walked over to them. Hey, guys, she smiled. Time to walk over to soccer practice, Massey. Olive doesn't want to be late, her mom said, and her 6-year-old sister smiled a toothy, sweet smile. Okay, Mazzy said, and put on her headphones. She started walking towards the field with her family, waving at her friends as she saw them. They got over the field, and Mazzy spread herself out on her picnic blanket and started listening to one of her favorite songs on her Discman. The practice ended an hour later, and they went home. At home, they ate dinner, she did some homework, and then she lay in her bed. She started to drift off to sleep, and as she drifted, she smiled. Mazzy was thinking about school the next day, but little did she know, she would not ever go back to school again. She awoke the next morning at 4:30 and she was feeling perky and happy. She went into the bathroom to brush her hair, and what she saw in the mirror made all the perkiness and happiness drain from her. No, she started crying. She fell to the bathroom floor and started sobbing hysterically. On the mirror, there was a note. It said, you aren't going to school today and not for a long time. I will explain more later. Love you, Mom. The note was so not subtle. It felt very not complete, like it was missing something. Massey knew exactly what it was missing. Details. She never liked not having the whole picture. She needed all the information, and when notes were worded like that, all she could do was feel anxious and annoyed. Massey cried, her heart sank, and all the emotions in her drained. It was as if someone had pulled the plug in the bathtub, and all the expressions in her went down the drain. I must go ask about this note, she said to herself as the tears left her system. She stood up, wiped her eyes, and walked to her parents' room, a couple doors down. She reached for the doorknob, but then realized what she was doing was wrong. It was only 4:45 in the morning, and it would be wrong for her to wake her mom, who didn't want to wake up for another few hours. But she couldn't stay up for another few hours, while the unsettled news swarmed in her like worms. But the mature thing to do would be to wait. So she went back into her room, pulled on her robe, and then walked downstairs to the living room. Ugh, she exclaimed as she slammed herself down on the couch, aggressively grabbed the TV remote, and turned on her favorite show, Victorious. When the normal average person would let out a laugh at the show, she let out a tear, and watching Victorious was a hard thing to do. You see, the show is about teenagers at a musical high school, and it is a hilarious sitcom. The thing about sitcoms is they normally make the average person laugh 1,000 times a minute, but that dreadful morning, she cried 1,000 tears a minute. She had watched 5 episodes, and by then, everyone in her family was downstairs. Everyone except her mom. Dad, where's Mom? Massey cried. Upstairs, chill out, he said as if he was rather taken aback. Yeah, Dad, whatever. She rolled her damp eyes and dashed up the stairs as if there was no tomorrow. She barreled without any poise into her parents' bedroom. Her mom was in bed, asleep. Mom, Massey yelled. Her mom sat up and had a look on her face that read, Dude, it's 6:30. Just another 30 minutes. What do you want? She asked sleepily. I want to know why I'm not getting ready for school right now and why I may never ever go back there again. She sniffed. She rubbed her eyes. Ah, yes, that. Well, I want to sleep a bit more. Can I please just sleep another couple hours? She asked, but knew that Massey would never allow her to go back to bed. No, Massey stated firmly. Well, fine. I'll explain as much as I can, but I might fall asleep during the explanation, she chuckled. Massey shot her a fiery glare, telling her that nothing was funny. There was absolutely no reason to be laughing right now. Fernando, the principal, sent out an email last night telling us that the school was optional today and the school will be closed for everyone except the people that need it tomorrow because of the coronavirus. I know that we have talked about this virus a lot in the past few weeks, but this virus, honey, it's killing people. Many people. Thousands and thousands of people are getting sick and are dying each day because of it. People are losing their jobs and aren't able to pay their rent or buy food for their families. You have to understand this. Even though the school district doesn't plan to open back schools up again for a few weeks, you'll still survive, she explained. Mazzy blinked, trying to hold tears back, but it was impossible. She let out a loud cry and said sharply, "Surviving is the very last thing I will do."
So that's about half of the story, so you'll have to read it to see how it ends. Thank you, Mazzy. That was awesome. I think your story is great. So, Gia.
Magic is Everywhere by Gia Moravich, illustrated by Mina Halloran. It was a normal day in March 2020 when the coronavirus hit. Twin sisters Leia and Lucy were 11 years old, lived in San Francisco, and they came from an Irish family. The O'Cleary clan was known to be old magical family said to have magic in their veins. The girls had set off their magic when they were 3 years old, when they danced and walked through rainbows while on a trip visiting family in Ireland. This stirred the magic in them. Ever since that day, they didn't get sick and they were able to help people that were sick. So the twin sisters, Leia and Lucy, were immune to coronavirus. 2020 began as a normal year, as an amazing year. The girls were nominated as 5th grade class president. But then people started getting sick. School got canceled and the girls had to stay at home. Leia and Lucy worked hard at online school, but they didn't like it. They missed seeing and playing with their friends and missed how much they loved their teachers. And they were sad that they wouldn't be class presidents. While not at school, the girls kept busy planting a new garden. They planted lettuce, tomatoes, peppers, along with many more unusual plants. At the end of March, the girls were planning their usual April Fool's Day tricks while watering their garden. Suddenly, over their fence, they heard their favorite neighbor, Miss Rosa, coughing and wheezing. Miss Rosa was like a best friend and a grandma all rolled into one. They spent a lot of time with her while their mom was at work. She loved to give big, long hugs just when you needed them. Had taught them how to bake, and they loved playing with Waffles, her cat. The girls looked at each other, scared and worried for Miss Rosa. "Oh no," said Lucy. "Miss Rosa has caught the coronavirus. She's 67. We love her and don't want her to get sick and maybe die." The look they gave each other was something only twins can do, knowing what each other were thinking. The girls decided that they were going to help cure Miss Rosa with one of their special magical potions. They rushed to their secret garden full of magical plants which had been planted there by their ancestors from Ireland, who came from Ireland to America many generations ago. Lucy said, "These are the symptoms: high temperature, coughing, hard to breathe, and no energy." Leia immediately knew that lavender will help them with the coughing and wheezing. Lucy jumped in saying freeze berries would freeze the high temperature, and marshmallow root will help with the coughing and help soothe her lungs. They both agreed that special blue peppermint would be great for energy and would be the base of the tea. They rushed to their potion lab, also known as the kitchen, to make their magical tea. But now they had to figure out how they can get Miss Rosa to drink it without her knowing it was them. How can they do this all while staying 6 feet away from each other. They wandered to each other. Suddenly, Leia had a brilliant idea. The next day was April Fool's Day, the biggest trickster day of the year. And then she told Lucy the plan. When they heard Miss Rosa in her garden early the next morning, they put the plan into action. Lucy lured Waffles, Miss Rosa's cat, into their garden with crackers and tuna, while Leia grabbed an identical water bottle and put the magical tea into it. Lucy called out to Miss Rosa, I found Waffles. Can you come to the fence and get him? Meanwhile, Leia sneaked into Miss Rosa's garden. While she was distracted, she swapped the bottle of water for the magic tea. They knew Miss Rosa would drink the tea because she always drank her water every day. They listened eagerly the next day to hear if they could hear Miss Rosa coughing or wheezing. But she didn't. She was cured, and they were so happy. Now they just had to figure out how to put the magical tea in the San Francisco main water supply. But that's a story for another day. The end.
I do want to show the picture that was at the end of Gia's story that was done by a friend of hers named Mina. Valentina's going to read a part of her story.
The future. My name is Ava Green. I'm 12 years old, and this is my story. My parents are scientists. They knew that there was going to be something bad that was going to happen. So they made a time machine, so I would say. I went to the future in a time machine made in 1999. This is what I saw after I got out of the time machine. The world will be nothing. Clouds of smoke, no one on the planet Earth. Everyone on planet Earth was killed because of the coronavirus. Doctors are all dead. No one found the cure. If you breathe the smell of Earth, it's very deadly. No one can stop the virus. The ones who saved were the people who were in space. They went to moon to be safe from the evil infection. The bats were done with people thinking they were trash, so they made one person eat bat, and they made infection, and they made the bat have an evil infection. The humans tried to stop the coronavirus, but bats were too smart for humans. Humans couldn't live their whole lives in house. They had to have food. Then all the doctors were trying to fight to find the cure. After all the doctors were killed, the people who did not know what to do. The people did not know what to do next, so they thought it was all over. But no, it was not. Because people almost forgot about the virus, it came back bigger and stronger. This time, it killed more people than the last. People were so tired of fighting the virus, they just gave up. Then, after every person was killed, they made bats and animals rule the world. No one knows if any humans were dressed up as animals and were still living on Earth.
That's the first part. There's a second part to her story. Oh, and we show them your picture, Valentina.
Wow. That's scary.
I know.
Okay, I think I'm gonna have a nightmare.
You're gonna have what? Oh, yeah. Ainara's afraid to have a nightmare. I know, it's a little nightmarish. I asked her if she got it from a dream, from a nightmare, and she said no, right?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. So, Ainara, did you want to read some of your story? Okay. So Ainara's gonna read some of hers. And and then we'll go to a couple of others of you. So Ainara's story, what's your story called, Ainara?
Why I stopped being bored.
Why I stopped being bored.
One day I was sitting in my bunk bed. I missed my school and I had been on Zoom all day. I was bored because I couldn't see my friends and play with them. Then I saw something glittering in the sunlight. There was a fairy sitting on the edge of my bed. The fairy waved and said, "Hello." I said, "Hi." The fairy asked, "Do you want to go on an adventure with me?" "Yeah," I said. "Follow me," she said, pointing to a small fairy door on the wall of my room. "I think I'm a little too big for that," I said. The fairy smiled and said, "That's okay. I can just shrink you with my wand." She muttered a spell, and all of a sudden, I was as small as her. We both jumped off my bed and landed right in front of the fairy door. We opened it and walked inside. It was the most beautiful forest. There were flowers blooming everywhere. The grass felt so soft and warm. It smelled so fresh. It smelled like roses. "Wow," I said. There were many fairy doors in the trees. "You can come to my house so we can pack for adventure," said the fairy. "Oh, and by the way, my name is Moonfire." "My name is Ainara," I said.
Need a little more? Is that good? Okay, show the picture. Okay, so there's more to the story. They go on big adventures, and Ainara's going to show you her picture, which is just beautiful. Yay. So, Neela, do you still not want to read yours, or do you want to read some? No? Okay. So, Olive, why don't you go next?
Generations Youth. They were there for it all. They watched it happen, felt the losses, screamed for the struggles, cheered for the victories. It was as much theirs as it was anyone else's. But what was different about them was they saw the reason, they knew the inequalities, and their innocence drove them to keep dreaming. It was frustrating. How could they be so close? So close they could almost touch it. Each time they were there, each time someone said, this time they're gonna get it. Something went wrong, something didn't work. Someone said, no. They grew up to be divided in a situation where unity was the only answer. They didn't need to agree, but they couldn't disagree either. It played back and forth, dancing atop the line of far, too far, not far enough. Pushing the boundaries, ruining the moments. It was less of a race together and more of a fight against each other. They had the same goal. They wanted it so bad, but they were blind as to what would get them there. They were overthinking it, going so fast they didn't see what was right in front of them. They couldn't see that all they needed was to stop, to breathe, to be grateful to be able to improve instead of destroy. They needed to see what they already had and use that to change what was already there. They had each other, not just those who they knew, not just those who were standing beside them, but they had each other. They all breathed the same air, cried the same tears, laughed in the same moments, and they wanted the same victories. Each generation started out wanting change, wanting to purify the world, but that doesn't happen overnight. And as more and more of them broke off from its overwhelming undertaking, they gave up. They left it to the next generation. Each generation started too late and ended too early. They began fighting only when that responsibility was burdened upon them, and stopped when that burden was capable of transfer. But now we have a shot. We have started fighting long before those before us gave up. We see the bigger picture. We know what it could be. We see what it should be. And most importantly, we will work to never accept anything less. We have control in this fight. We have the upper hand, and we see not just what we want to see, but what we need to see. Change is no longer a possibility. It is a necessity. Thank you.
Yay. Thanks, Olive. That was great. Summer, we would love to do your story. So I have to say, there's a number of stories, of course, that we don't have the authors here that we didn't read. There are more great stories and poems, but just like we thought Mazzy's would be really great for the beginning because it was really an introduction to how a lot of kids felt, we thought Summer's would be great for the end because it's so upbeat. We really loved it. So do you want to do yours?
Also, but also I could change it, but I did take a section of my story that I liked best, that I want to read. So,
Okay, or you can read the whole thing if you want. It's not super long, so it's up to you.
yeah, I'm not gonna read the whole thing. I just want to read this one part.
Okay.
And I'm just gonna like hold it up to the screen because mine's a graphic novel and not a story. So can you see that okay?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm just gonna be reading like 4 pages.
Cool.
So, Madison, got a sec? Want to talk to Wendy on the phone? But she lives right next door. I know, but with all this COVID stuff and oh, okay, sorry Wendy, Madison isn't feeling great. Maybe she can chat another time. Sorry, see you soon. Can I come in? Sure. Look, honey, I know you're sad, but this time just isn't a good time to see friends, especially indoors. And wait a second, what if we go see all your friends in the park and we wear masks? Does that sound good? Mm-hmm. Thank you, Mom. You're welcome. And then this is 2 hours later. Your friends should be here soon. Yay! I see them. Hi, everybody. And that's the end.
Can you show, do you have the next page that shows all your friends in the picture? We love that. If not, we have it in the book. We have.
Yeah, I don't know.
Can we show it? Is that okay?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I see it. I added cheese because I didn't.
Do you have your last page in front of you? Can you read the last page, or that would be really nice because it's the very end of the book. Show the picture too for that.
This one? Yeah, I see it, Mom. Okay. So I guess the main lesson in this story is don't have anything let you down. Solve your problems, try new things, and most importantly, don't give up. Thank you so much for taking a look at my story. Bye.
Speaking of pictures, I wanted to show the front of the book.
My favorite story.
Yeah, and I wanted to give a shout out to Neela, who drew the picture that we decided to use for the cover because it's such an awesome drawing. We just loved it and thought it was really fitting for the whole theme of the book. And Einar is going to show you it too. And what else?
This is great. Well, thank you everybody so much for reading and telling about your motivations. And does anybody have anything else that they want to say before? I think we're pretty much ready to wrap up, right?
I would like Valentina to read the dedication of the book because we have a dedication.
We dedicate this book to essential workers and all the children living through the COVID-19 pandemic.
Did everybody hear that? Yeah. So yeah, anything anybody wants to add, you can say anything you want. Either about writing, about the pandemic, your experience, the book, anything you want to share.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is so exciting. I'm so glad everyone was able to make this webinar for the kids in Easton and anybody else who wants to watch this, and hopefully they will buy this book and maybe do some writing of their own inspired by it.